So I will call the regular monthly commission meeting for the Port of Newport to order at 6:04. I will start us off with any changes to the agenda. Anybody have any changes? I would like to make one change to the agenda. The addition under new business of a discussion of the process for appointing appointing or filling vacant commissioner positions. Karen passed this around to us, I think to each of the commission. This is the process that we have followed, at least in recent past. And Walter, you've gone through these a number of times, so I assume this is the binding resolution that has guided us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it has been.
So I'll add that for discussion on new business. Any other comments? Any changes? Okay. We will go moving right along into our first public comment section of the meeting. So for those wishing to make a public comment, please state your name. You'll have 3 minutes to make a comment. You'll also have an opportunity at the end of the meeting for another 3-minute opportunity. If you'd like to speak to a specific agenda item, I'll remind you again, sign in the back and you can pass up your comment sheet to us, and we will identify you during the agenda. Otherwise, you'll just have an opportunity at the end. So with that, anyone like to make a public comment? Okay. Nothing heard. We will move into the next section of our agenda, the election of commission officers. So, as is standard procedure with our processes and bylaws, we elect, or the commission goes through and identifies either a panel of officers, and I'll start this discussion, and please, by all means, port staff, jump in here. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll do it in reverse. Please, I don't want to steal your thunder. Go ahead.
No. As a matter of fact, what I actually would like to do is, since we're now creating a new process here for this next fiscal year, and you have just today provided a resignation letter. I think this is probably the best time to talk about that, and the fact that obviously you would be part of that, new elections, I guess. So if you want to talk about that at all?
Sure. So as I think all of the Port Commission are now aware, on the 23rd, I formally submitted a letter of resignation that you see here before you. This is me stepping down. I've assumed another position at another organization that'll take me outside of the Port District, as my letter here has indicated. Without taking up too much time here, as I've been known to do, I will take a little license and just mention how difficult a decision it was for me and my family to leave this area, as we truly love the area, and I can't tell you how fortunate I feel to have been a part of the Port Commission, working with Port staff, the various different Port Commissioners that I've had, and the opportunities that it's provided me. So it is definitely with a heavy heart that I put this forward, but in the end, it really comes down to what I think is the best for our family and in our situation right now. I will, of course, always be keeping an eye on the Port and in there to help out in any way I possibly can from afar, but it's ultimately it was the time for me to step down. So I did provide this letter of resignation to Paula, and that's my situation right now. So I'll yes, comment.
I just want to thank Stuart for his service to the Commission, the Port, and Newport. Stuart has volunteered a lot of this time during the period that required a higher than normal involvement. As Commission President, Stuart helped steady the Commission during a difficult time, along with Terry as interim General Manager, and now with Paul as General Manager. The Commission and the Port is functioning much better. So I just want to personally thank you for that, and just wish you the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that as well. And we're not taking off quite yet. We'll be in the area through middle to late August, so I'll be lurking around. But as I said, my letter formally gives me till the end of the week in the interest of finishing up any loose ends that I might be able to help out with. But again, very much appreciate the comments, Jeff.
I'd like to echo what Jeff said, and you were definitely a strong voice in a very time of need that we were kind of faltering, and you just stepped right up to the plate and kind of gathered us together and sent us on our much more positive path of thinking and inclusive and transparent and 5-0 votes, and just really stepped up to the plate. And I want to give you a little piece of Newport.
Well, thank you very much. It's under $50, I hope.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. It was the place where I did a lot of studying for the previous commission meetings. It's a great place of learning and knowledge.
Yes.
Thank you.
Greasy hamburgers.
Thank
Bill's burgers.
Thank you again. So, Walter.
Just like to thank you for
Ooh, that's a good one.
it's been a pleasure to serve with you, Stuart. We're losing one of our more senior members, and we'll miss you. It was fun working with you now and in the past, and I wish you the best, you and your family, the best of luck. And our swim team's loss is the game for the swim team of your kids' new school.
Well, thank you for that. And again, I'll say again, I just appreciate everything that and the opportunities that the Port Commission has provided me, and we'll have a chance to chat more.
Well,
I'm sure.
unfortunately, I didn't have an opportunity to work with you very long, but
Sure.
I heard nothing but good things from Terry, from the interim manager, from the time that you step up and really help her get through a lot of the issues that the port was going through. And on behalf of the board and the staff and commissioners, I would like to present you with the certificate. Appreciation, and I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here, you
Reenact.
want to? Thank you. And like I said, I'll be around for a little bit longer. I'll be able to catch up and say a proper goodbye to everybody as well as August rolls around. So,
Yeah, I'm going to miss you.
thank you.
And thank you again.
Absolutely. All right. Well, sheepishly and very humbly, we will move to the next section of this particular agenda item, which is the election of officers and the options that the commission has. And
Jim, want to say anything?
oh, sorry, Jim, you still with us?
Lights out.
Hello, I am.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
yeah, we got you.
I echo everyone's sentiment.
Well stated. All right, we'll move into options here.
Right. For some reason, I didn't get the page that has
There's two sides. One is the duties and one is the election.
right. Okay, the election is here. I didn't listen. So I think all of you have gotten a copy of this. So basically, just for your information, and hopefully you had a chance to look through the duties of commission officers and find out what your interest in terms of getting this completed. So the order of the nomination shall be president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. So 4 or 5 commissioners must be in attendance before an office may be elected. So we have 4 of you here and 1 by phone. So commissioner may be elected as an officer upon receiving a nomination, a second, and a vote of the majority in attendance. A commissioner may not nominate or second their nomination, but they may vote on the nomination. If the nominated commissioner does not receive a majority, the sitting commission president shall continue asking for nominations until the office is filled. If an office is unable to be filled, the sitting office holder shall remain in the position. The office may become vacant if the most recent office holder is not available. Until the next scheduled meeting, the business item will then be placed on the next agenda. An alternative process is to elect a blank of officers. Commissioners not on the proposed blank shall nominate and second their nomination. All commissioners are eligible to vote for the blank. In case of an emergency, other processes may be used to appoint officers. The one-year term of office is from July 1st until June 30th of the following year. So basically, since this is the first commission meeting, we'll start from this commission meeting forward. So I'm not really sure how we're going to proceed with this, but currently you are still the president until the date that you decided to resign. Stuart, so I believe you would probably should be the one starting the process. So.
Sure. Well, I guess I'll throw out a thought for the commission to consider as well. One of the things that we might consider is as a commission, and I have to say, I'll preface my comments with, in light of my departure, I won't have to, I'm not the one that's going to be inheriting, if you will, any of the decision-making processes that will go forward with the slate of officers that would be being nominated here. I would say one thing that the commission may want to consider is actually holding off on picking the elected officials or the leadership until an actual replacement for me as a commissioner is installed, and then collectively as a group looking at that group and choosing your officers from that. Just something to consider. Not that this group isn't necessarily qualified at all per se, but it just might allow for more of a holistic decision, as well as time to consider things in light of the fact that certainly my departure is fairly new. So I'll throw that out as an initial comment, and then I think, Paula, I just assume,
Make a nomination.
I just assume open this up to individual commissioners for comment, and go ahead.
Starting with the president, I guess.
I see what you're saying with that. I think I would have a different take as far as a new commissioner probably wouldn't jump in at the top level as an officer, and I think for continuity and for certainty, I would prefer to go ahead with the officer nominations. And with that, I'd like to make the nomination of Sarah for president.
Okay. Can we continue to hear other comments before entertaining, or
I think.
are there any other comments? Not necessarily. I mean, I'd hope to actually have a little bit higher level discussion before we jumped into that, but that's fine. There's a nomination on the table.
I believe typically you somebody in the second or somebody, or you can continue with comments if you wish.
So there's a nomination on the table right now, and as to reiterate what Paul said, a plank of officers can be put forth or done individually, which is how I think we did it last time.
Yeah, as long as we do the president, vice president, secretary, as from that order according to the resolutions.
Are there any other comments just in the interim?
I'm fine moving forward, Stuart, as long as we can keep Jim on the line.
Okay. And Sarah?
I agree with the seniorness of us all making the decision.
Fine. And Jim?
Yeah, no, I support.
Are you
moving
on?
forward, we've been stymied by delay a little bit in the past, just due to open positions on the staff level. I think we should honor filling these positions probably, now as being urgent.
Okay. Just as a point of clarification, we have the public comment period at the beginning and the end of the meetings, and we have individual comments throughout the agenda. If you fill out a form there, we'll call on people for these comments. So I know you came in a little bit late. Otherwise, those are the opportunities we have for public comment. So apologies, that's our
You
process.
can grab one right now.
Such is life. Okay. Are there any other comments about whether or not just the process or moving forward? There's a nomination. Is there on the table right now for an individual nomination for president? How do people want to proceed?
You ask for a second.
Yeah. Jim, are you there?
Yep, I'm in and out of mute. I'm ready to proceed.
Okay. So right now we're looking for a second for a nomination that's on the table right now for Sarah to assume the position of president of the Port Commission. It was put forth by Jeff.
I will second that.
Okay. At this point, any other comments? Well, I suppose I should ask if you're willing to assume the position at this point.
Yes.
Okay. So are there any other discussions anybody would like to have about the nominee or about this motion that's been moved forward? Walter?
Nope.
Jim, I'll... at this,
Yeah, I'm good with this right now.
Okay. So I guess at this point, we're going to vote on Sarah filling the president's position. We have a motion and a second. And Sarah, you can vote for yourself, I assume, correct? Okay, then we'll go ahead and I'll have a nomination. All those in favor of Sarah assuming the presidency for the Port of Newport for the next year, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion passes. So Sarah will be the next president of the Port Commission. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We have a position of vice president.
You hand the gavel to Moses.
Oh, I've been told by my secretary that my duties are officially moving on. So excellent.
For that, Walter.
You're wonderful. Actually, I should thank Walter too. Sarah, again, congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you all for your patience while I have been at the helm. So,
Oh,
Madam Chair.
my mind wanders suddenly. Okay, we are now at the vice president's position. And so, do we have any nominations for vice president? Jeff,
I nominate Jim for vice president.
do we have a second? Can I second?
I guess you could.
Traditionally, the chair, the president doesn't, but you can go ahead if you're ready.
Well, I'm the president.
No, you can second.
Well, I second it. Any discussion, or are you the president?
No, I'm not. I'm nothing. I would just suggest, I think something to think about is.
Jeff accepting.
Oh, that's true.
I was going to say that.
You got to make sure, Jim.
Oh, Jim, are you willing to accept the position of vice president of the commission?
Aye.
Okay, that's an affirmative.
I guess all I was going to say was, we have a lot of some seniority around in terms of being on the commission for a while. Jim is a little new at this, not that he can't assume that, but I guess that would just be something that I was thinking about in terms of the officers that we have. I think I wanted to sort of mention that up front, that taking advantage of the experience that we have is important. So with that was my only comment. So,
Any more comments?
no,
No?
it's going to be hard.
If not, then I guess we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Jim Burke as Vice President of the Commission, say aye.
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 Jim, did we hear you? You can vote. Jim?
Aye.
Oh, okay.
Dramatic pause.
Yeah, and so that's, was 5?
Now we have secretary and treasurer.
Right. So you are now the Vice President, Jim Burke.
Okay, thank you.
And so our last position is Secretary.
You know, you could have done this as a plank, Jeff.
I would like
Just
to
kidding.
nominate Walter as Secretary Treasurer.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I'll accept the nomination.
Oh, and you will accept. Any more discussion? Sorry about that. If not, then all those in favor say aye.
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 Congratulations to us all. We now are new officers and off to other agenda items, I guess.
Yeah, and then again, another reminder that on your packet, you do have the duties of the commissioner officers. So in case you're wondering what your job is. So just take a look at that, and if you have any other questions, let me know later.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is updating the organization's liaisons, the liaisons that we have. And that is page number 5. We had whittled this down last year, so it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so we, and just so you know, from this list here, I automatically assume all the items that has Terry Dressler listed, so I then go into those meetings. But we also figured this is a good time, good opportunity to make sure that this is updated since we have new officers. I believe Karen had put on your packets there.
I think it's in the.
It's in this.
Right.
Oh, you know, I may have given you the wrong stuff earlier. There were some questions from Sarah early on about the times of the meetings, you know, how often they meet and so on and so forth. So we, Karen did a little homework and found that out, and I put that on your package. So, and this is regarding the vacant position. Well, you probably won't need that, but here you go. So as we move forward with the vacant position, I thought I was giving you this, and I gave you the information
I
regarding.
got one too.
We had,
I think we already
You
had
did?
this.
yeah.
So you must have children.
So we didn't get the liaison.
Audience wants them.
Yeah, if anybody, the public wants them, maybe they could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I should.
I gave away all the stuff you gave me. So. Oh,
That's
here
it.
we go.
Here it is.
Yeah, and how this is. Okay, so these are when the meetings typically happen, in case you are interested. We can either keep the same folks, except for obviously when we had Stuart may have to be somebody else. But that's typically when the meetings happen, and if you look at the ones that, like the Cascade West Area Commission on Transportation, it has to be I guess this one could be a staff as an alternate, but it has always been a commissioners. The number 4 Cascade West, that definitely has to be commissioners.
Okay, so you are,
I'm
Yeah.
looking into going into some of the City of Newport council meetings, but mostly for my own curiosity and participation, but it's certainly two of the commissioners can be listed here as well.
Can I just make a quick comment
Sure,
too, real quick?
sure.
I thought I would comment on two of the things that I've been dealing with a little bit. And the Cascade West Councils of Government is an important group to be a part of. They meet, they telecast their meetings in Toledo, and then they meet in Albany. I think this is an important one for the commission to continue, although at times the topics may seem a little peripheral to some of the issues going on in the court. I think it's important for the commission to have a presence at some of these when we can. It's, again, part of that, getting our presence and our acknowledgement back out there. And they have provided support for grants and other things that we have pursued. So it'd be good to keep up with that group. And then I'll just reiterate what hopefully should be fairly apparent, but the importance of us continuing our presence at the City Council in Newport here. I think having the commissioners present at some of those, at all those if we can, between the commission, that attendance I think is an important thing to maintain going forward. So I'll just throw that out there.
What we could do is go item by item where the current commissioners are listed, unless you have interest in participating also on the other areas.
I wondered if maybe a good thing to be where Stuart has been the main person and an alternate, that the alternate take the main position,
Yeah,
and then we
that's
find
good.
new alternates. Like Walter, you would come up first on that, or with Cascade West Governments, would you be the lead person and then we pick an alternate?
It's usually been the president has been the one representing them.
Would you like to be the lead person and then there could be an alternate?
I would like to be the alternate.
Okay, so I would take over. I mean, do we vote on this? It says must be elected.
Staff, in the past, it was the president went, and then the general manager was also to be the alternate. Don
Right.
went to a lot of them, but
Patricia went before me.
That
Just as a-
sounds like I'm stuck. So I just was looking at that as how we would maybe find an easy way to replace you on this, but Walter does have the information on that. So I would say to start at the top.
Okay.
The fact that Aaron is going to the American Albacore Fishing Association makes sense. Does anyone have any comments on that?
And I believe the number 2, I'm probably going to be taking over for that, right, Aaron? We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So Aaron would be replaced with Paul Miranda.
Now, isn't the APP, I mean, don't commissioners regularly attend those, don't they?
Commissioners attend,
Like from
and
other ports, don't you get a lot of commissioners?
there's a mix. This is one of those that you get a mix of both. But as far as the license, doesn't have to be a commissioner, or it could be either or, quite frankly.
Not to necessarily replace it, but I think one of the things that I observed at the PNWA meetings, and maybe you guys did as well, the importance of having commissioners
Yeah.
there.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
a different
Yeah, Walter and I were
feeling.
there. It was- Yeah.
The same thing with APP and some of those port associations.
So this doesn't preclude any of us
No.
commissioners from going?
You can
It's
always
just that
come
you're
to
for sure.
the conferences. And,
Or maybe you list an alternate commissioner, just so that there's coverage in case Aaron isn't available. At a minimum, we'll always have a...
Right, so Paula is the main person and then Aaron is the alternate. Is what I understand. You were having discussions.
No, we just, because Aaron had, I believe he was listed here when he was the interim.
That's right.
Yeah,
okay.
and he has a lot of obligations, and certainly he can
Right.
still attend some of the
So
conferences.
you're not the
Well,
alternate.
the alternate maybe would be one of the commissioners.
Do any of the commissioners want to be the alternate for the Association of Pacific Ports?
so, staff. I'm fine with staff doing it myself.
I
Jeff?
didn't hear what Walter said.
I said I'm fine with staff doing it.
Did you hear that, Jim?
I did not.
I said I'm fine with staff going as our representatives.
Okay.
Personally.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
And we didn't have an alternate per se before, so that would just be Paul Miranda.
And again, in any of the commissioners that
Right, if we show an interest to go,
Yeah.
we just can let you know.
sometimes too, you look at the agenda, and some commissioners have, you may have more interest in one agenda versus another, and that can play out, you know, differently every time, so.
Okay. So Cascade West Area Commission on Transportation. Because of my new title, I'll be so busy, I probably will have to drop out of that one. And so Jeff, would you like to be, or does anyone want to volunteer the Cascade West Commission on Transportation? And that's the one that you can either go to Albany, or you can do the phone in Toledo. Yes, Walter?
We always tried to keep those two the same.
Oh, on the,
Cascade, because Cascade
Because they're
West,
really-
they're both the same, and usually the president liked to know. So if we want to keep the tradition, we can do that. But like I said, it's best to have the same person going to the COG and to the ACT.
okay then.
Good stuff, Sarah.
A little weight comes with that gavel.
Yeah, I see that now.
And you can't
Well-
hit somebody with it.
You'd be surprised.
At least not while I'm sitting there.
Well, you know, we're all people, so on this we did have alternates, and I would like to find some alternates on that for me, because I have a life also, even though I'm more than willing to represent the port as best I can in each of these positions. Is there any willing alternates on Cascade West number 3 and 4, Council of Governments and Commission on Transportation? Do you think there is, Jim? Any alternates on those?
Yeah, you can fit me in there.
Okay, which one? Council of Governments or Transportation?
Both.
Oh.
Take your pick.
Oh, well, it's so hard to decide. We put you down on both.
Well, I figure that's a tax for not being there, right? Getting assigned extra stuff.
I'll be the alternate on one of them, whichever. Jim, why don't you pick? I'll be the alternate on the other one.
Transportation or Council of Governments? Jim?
Transportation, please.
Okay.
For 100. Sorry.
And so Walter is the alternate on Cascade West Council of Governments, and I appreciate that. And so Cascade West Economic Development District, is that Aaron Bretz again was pro-intern at that point? But you would
Yeah,
have
I
taken that?
took over that one as well, so.
So Aaron, instead of Aaron, it'll be Paul Miranda. Commercial Fishermen User Group, I was the regular and Jim was the alternate. Do you want to maybe switch on that, or does somebody else want to be on that?
I'm comfortable where I was, but whatever you'd like.
For continuity's sake, you just want to keep it.
Yeah, it's pretty easy one. So we'll keep that the same then, unless there's any other. And then DAS, OPS, OR, CPP, Procurement Services. That sounds like Aaron Bretz and Mark Harris are really good at that kind of stuff.
They are good.
All right, so Economic Development Alliance of Lincoln County, EDEAL AFC. That sounds like
Me and Aaron. Yeah.
Paula and Aaron. And
In the chamber, I've been going to those.
in the chamber is Paul Miranda. Midcoast Watersheds Council, Jim Burke, are you still up for that? Or does someone else?
Okay.
Okay, that stays. Newport City Council. That sounds like,
You and Jim, maybe.
yeah. Who would, is Walter, do you want to be alternate, or Jeff, or?
I'll be the alternate.
Okay, I'll be,
And as you say, it doesn't preclude anybody from going to them.
absolutely. And so Walter is the alternate on Newport City Council. And then number 12, Ocean Policy Advisory Council. Walter, you've been steady on that for years.
Yeah.
Okay, Walter's on that. Oregon Coast Zone Management, OCZMA. Walter, you've been the mainstay. You're good. And Aaron Bretz is the alternate, or some other staff? Would that be Paula again? instead of Aaron? Or Aaron, are you staying on OCZ?
I do need to learn more about that. I need to get more active in it, so I'm going to do that one way or the other. So, but
Okay.
I can carry it, no problem.
So that's good to go. Oregon Economic Development Association was Terry. I assume that's Paula.
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with the region.
And Oregon Public Ports Association would be
Likewise.
Paula, and an alternate is Aaron. Okay. Pacific Coast Congressman of Harbor Masters and Port Managers seems to be like the Harbor Master would be a good choice.
Yeah, and I would like to put an alternate because I think we really need to start getting one person or so going because Kent obviously is looking to retire in the next few years. He hasn't specified a date, but he talks about it. So maybe
I can do it.
Aaron can be an
Okay, so
alternate.
Aaron's an alternate on Pacific Coast Congress of Harbor Masters and Port Managers, and Pacific Northwest Waterways Association, PNWA, be Paul Miranda and Aaron.
So I don't know if Aaron will continue doing that, or if maybe we should put one of the commissioners.
PNWA.
The baby and everything.
It's probably not going to change my interaction with him. I still talk to him
Yeah.
fairly frequently. I can change anything for me. So.
Does someone want to be the PNWA alternate?
I just would like a commissioner, always make a point of having one of the commissioners at the conferences because, again, there's a lot of lobbying, a lot of, things like that, I think it's very helpful to the board to, and then again, you get an opportunity to meet your commissioners, peers, so I think it's
Any takers?
I'll do it.
Walter? Walter is the alternate at the PNWA. Thank you, Walter. Special districts, that would be you, Paula. Western Fish Boat Owners Association, Aaron, are you?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. Do you need an alternate?
No.
YB,
nothing going.
Paula. Do we want a commissioner on that? That's an alternate?
I don't think Jeff got any job.
No, I didn't see you. Why are you over there? All right, Jeff's the alternate.
Sorry, Jeff.
That's all right.
Wouldn't you want to follow again the same logic back on the Association of Pacific Ports, follow a similar philosophy to PNWA and the YB, having a commissioner as an alternate?
Yeah, I think we put Walter on the Pacific Northwest Waterways.
Right,
And
that's then the number 14.
Number 2, the Association of Pacific Ports is sort of a public meeting where you have a mixture of port commissioners
It is a
and
mix. Maybe
so-
Jeff would be interested on that.
seems like it would make
I'm sorry, which one are you talking about?
Number 2.
Number 2?
Association Pacific Ports.
And it doesn't preclude other commissioners from going to any of these.
No.
It's not
just an
in-
alternate.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll put Jeff on that. And then Jeff, you'll be also the alternate for YP?
Yep.
And was there another one that you had mentioned?
And those kind of
Yeah,
things.
is there any other?
So just to review, we've got, Karen.
There's one thing that isn't on the liaisons list that Stuart has been serving on is the vision.
Oh, good point.
2040 vision of the city.
Yes. Yeah, I'll have to step down from that one as well.
Right,
Um, So I did speak with Spencer briefly about that. And I think this is definitely an important one for the port to continue to play a role in. There are a few meetings associated with it, but it was a great catch, Karen. The port really should be represented in whether that's either from a commissioner or the general manager, one or two. I think if it was a commissioner, it'd probably make some sense for it to be a president, vice president kind of thing. If it's or the general manager one.
I'll be happy to attend whichever one you prefer.
Yeah, because I'm Newport City Council, Walter and I are. Walter, would you be interested in also being on the 2040 vision? Or
Since
Jim?
he's been around. I mean, one of the things about it is it brings together a lot of past of where things are and where it's going kind of thing too.
Jim or Walter, are you interested in taking over Stewart's spot with the Vision 2040 with the city?
I've got a pretty full plate.
Yeah, Walter's on a lot of them. Jim is too.
But you could start out on it and see
I
how
could
you
do it. I
yeah.
could do it.
I can be an alternate.
And you'll be
Yeah.
the alternate. All right. And I've got your cell phone number, right?
Hell yeah.
Okay, so yeah, thank you for that. And American Albacore is Aaron, Association of Pacific Ports, Paul Miranda, and Cascade West Commission on Transport. Was Association of Pacific Ports we decided to have an alternate?
Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff. Okay, sorry, I didn't write that down. Cascade West Area Commission of Transportation, Sarah with Jim as the alternate. Cascade West Council of Government, Sarah with Walter as the alternate. Cascade West Economic Development is Paula. Commercial Fishing User Group, Sarah and Jim as the alternate. Procurement Services, Aaron and Mark Harris. Economic Development Alliance of Lincoln County, Paula and Aaron. Greater Newport Chamber of Commerce, Paula. Midcoast Watershed Council, Jim. Newport City Council, Sarah as an alternate, Walter. Ocean OPAC is Walter. OCZMA is Walter. Oregon Economic Development, Paula. Oregon Public Ports Association, Paula. Pacific Coast Congress of Harbor Masters, Kent Gibson with an alternate as Aaron. Pacific Northwest Waterways, Paula with an alternate, Walter. Special Districts, Paula. Western Fish Boat Owners Association, Aaron. YB, Paula with Jeff as an alternate.
Very good.
So, thank you for that. That was easy. And so, next on the agenda is consent calendar. There was an addition, the Newport International Terminal 30-ton crane annual service that we got just this evening. Did we all have time to read over that contract basically for... Did we need to approve the ton? It was just a recommendation. There was $11,000 set aside for in the budget to Fort Crane maintenance account, and this amount is $7,739, and I would assume it's very well needed. So that's just like this is being done. So, any comments on that? That was just a new part of the consent calendar.
Walter.
I'm sorry.
If we discuss them, we take them off the consent calendar. The consent calendar is just blanket.
Yeah, this was just new tonight. I didn't know if everyone received it. Okay, so the consent calendar. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar or a discussion?
I'd like to have financial reports taken off
Financial reports to be taken off
Yeah.
of the
consent calendar.
consent calendar and move to old business, new business?
To all business 8 items removed from the consent calendar.
Yes, I see that now. Thank you. So having removed that, is there any discussion about approving the rest of the consent calendar? If there isn't, could we have a motion?
I move that we approve the consent calendar minus the financial reports as written.
Any second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So we're moving to old business, which is items removed from consent calendar come up first. And Walter, you requested that, so I assume you have something to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, I did not see the list of checks on there, and I did not want to approve
Yeah.
that. Is that,
So yeah, those would be account payables, and the reason being is that Becca was not in the office, and she wasn't able to complete that, so she was just finishing that up today, and you'll see a copy of that tomorrow. Unfortunately, it was just not able to complete it in time.
okay, the reason I had it removed is I do have a reimbursement check in there, and I would have to declare actual conflict of interest, and that's why.
Okay. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm not really sure how we can, because you have to prove that, or,
Usually we approve, yeah, usually.
yeah, we'll be happy to send it to you tomorrow, but probably we'll put it back on the next commission meeting.
I think to be thorough, it would be better to
Well-
get it back on. Or it's no big deal.
If everyone else is fine with it, I
What
just
was the
need
check for?
reimbursement from mileage and the hotel for PNW.
PNW.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any issues with that or needs a special addition to next month's agenda? Or-
You can approve it, I just can't vote on it, that's all.
Okay, so you have a real, okay.
I have an actual conflict, there's a check.
Well, you can still vote on it, you just gotta say that you have a conflict, but you can still.
It's an actual conflict, because it is a check.
Right.
I'm not sure that you're voting on something that's not in the packet.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Okay, well, it's still
At
part of the,
this point in
well,
time.
okay, it just,
But in general, I believe you can still vote on, even if you have a conflict, you just state your conflict and you can.
But Karen's point is that we can't vote on it because it
Right.
wasn't in the packet. So would it automatically carry over to next month?
That would have been my assumption
Okay.
because we don't have the package.
Right, right. So that'll just be a
Right,
carryover.
and we'll finally- I'll do it next-
Yeah, just
next
to
meeting.
formally approve the financial,
But yes, he won't vote because he has an actual conflict
Yeah.
at that time.
but we'll do it next month.
Right.
Okay. So that takes care of the items removed from the consent calendar then. And B is accounts paid, C addendum, that was what we also got this evening on the email. And I hope everyone's had a chance to look through it. Does anyone have any comments on the accounts paid?
That's what's not in there.
Yeah, that's what it's missing. Unfortunately, we said see addendum because we're hoping that addendum is going to
I thought
show.
we got the addendum, but
With the addendum is for those other items on the staff report.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
It's done if you want to send it over.
But it's,
Not all of them are done. I did have to just send it over.
Secretary.
but they have to see it.
so we're basically done with the accounts paid and the items removed because we can't vote on it because we don't have it.
That's
Okay.
We're just going to have to remove that.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, the financial reports are part of the consent calendar. They were removed. So are you going to approve the financial reports, which is not the accounts payable?
Oh, the actual financial reports.
You should be able to.
Yes, they should. Yeah, they did it.
So that's back to A, and old business items removed from consent calendar is the financial reports. Do we have a motion? Yes, Jeff.
I make a motion to approve the financial reports as written.
A second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Jim, did you chime in on that?
Yeah, I
All right.
Okay. So now we're on old business C, approval of strategic business plan update.
Right.
Paul, you want to talk about that?
Sure. Okay, as I put on my staff report, I had a conversation with Dave Carlin from Business Oregon about this. We're in a very interesting situation because we're actually the first one to complete an update for the strategic plan. As you know, this was a requirement from the legislature to make sure that all ports had a strategic plan before they could come to Business Oregon and ask for monies, grants or loans or anything like that. In order to do that, you also had to enter into an intergovernmental agreement, an IGA. And at this point in time, they are not really certain if by approving the updated strategic plan now is going to require an amendment to the IGA, or they're going to do a brand new IGA. Dave Harlan, who is retiring at the end of this month, was a bit uncertain. But he thought we should go ahead and just approve the strategic plan. He made some recommendations, which I had sent to you. Under those recommendations, I believe Jeff had also made a small change. Jeff, do you want to talk about your change, or do you want me to?
I can't. I just,
What page is that on?
I'm looking for it now.
The page of the,
Page 77. And I'm suggesting a change here, if you want to pick one and pass it. Just that there was an addition put in here, 115, that states, incorporate the strategic business plan into the Port Commission's decision making to ensure continued alignment with the Port's mission and the expectations of its funding partners and other agencies. And I am suggesting something that I believe is keeping with the intent of this addition, but just adding specificity in all the partners that we would have commitments to. Expectations are based on commitments that are probably more agreed upon and fleshed out than expectations is a little vague. So I just try to add specifics to it and say that we would have commitments to stakeholders in the Port District as well. And so that's my suggested change.
So basically, this would read, incorporate the strategic business planning to the Port Commission's decision-making to ensure continued alignment for the Port's mission and commitments to its funding partners, other agencies, its stakeholders, and the Port District versus what was originally written. And again, this is just making a change to the change that Parliament made. So they propose that language on the strategy 1.1.5, and Jeff is recommending to change a couple words there.
Any discussion on that?
What's involved in actually making a change to this? I mean, are we going to be on the hook? Are we making these changes, or do we have to go back to Berger ABAM and have them do it?
I actually have the Word document for this. They did just turn it into PDF. I think I can easily put that in and make the change. And even if we ask them, it's literally 3 words. I don't think it will be an issue.
I mean, is there any other changes that are also?
All the other changes, WSP, who used to be Berger ABAM, had already made it. All the changes that the Department from the state requested has been already included on the latest version by the consultant.
And would that include goal 1 on the same page?
Everything that was, except for the changes that Jeff just made,
Okay.
everything has been already
Put into the plan.
put into the plan.
So again, all the comments have been incorporated that make Business Oregon feel happy about things have been incorporated into this version.
That's
So
correct.
All we're talking.
I did send this change over to Baycom, but I haven't gotten a comment back from him, so I don't see it as a big change, but...
You're talking about Jeff's change.
Yeah, and I don't think Baycom is going to have a heartache over this, but I cannot speak for him.
Does the commission have any objections or reasons to not allow that simple thing to change through Jeff's suggestion?
I think Jeff's suggestion is great, but if that's what the state asked us to put in there, I would rather just go with what they asked us to put in there and just make it as simple as possible.
What you can do is approve it subject to the state's approval.
That's fine.
Because that way the state doesn't think that language should be included, then, it should go.
So can that be just on a consensus basis of us? Or do we
Well,
include
you
that
have
in
to
the
approve
approval
the
of the
plan.
entire plan?
Yeah, you have to approve the plan subject to the change, but then again, two subjects here.
Right.
To the state's approval of the change.
Okay.
Does Jim have any?
Jim, do you have any,
He didn't probably see this. Did you send this to Jim?
No, because we just made that change.
Yeah, I don't have any comments.
okay. Well, I guess we're at a point with the long-awaited, oh, Karen.
I just wanted to suggest maybe you did it in two motions, make one motion to make the amendment subject to approval by state, and then make another motion that accepts it.
Does everyone understand that need? Does anyone have a motion for Walter's change first?
Jeff's change.
Oh,
Or-
Jeff's change. Sorry, Walter. I'm really hitting it 100%.
Can you say that again, Karen?
My suggestion was that first we make a motion to change the wording on that section subject to approval by the state. And then make another motion to accept this as amended or as approved.
Okay.
Yes, Jeff.
So I make a motion that the commission accept the strategic business plan, approve the strategic business plan as written with the one amendment in strategy 1.15 to read incorporate the strategic business plan into the Port Commission's decision making to ensure continued alignment with the Port's mission and commitments to its funding partners, other agencies, and stakeholders in the Port District, subject to approval of the amendment by the state.
Okay, does that include approving the entire?
That includes everything. But
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. Proper. Everyone understand that motion? Any discussion on that? I ask for a motion to approve, well, that is the motion. I'd ask for a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Nothing opposed. So the approval of the strategic business plan update is confirmed with the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And so new business, water easement to the City of Newport HMSC building, page 93.
So we were asked by OSU to provide an easement so they can finish their building. As I looked at their lease, it does empower them to build buildings on the site for their use, and obviously you can't build buildings without utilities. So in that case, my assumption is it's not like we're going to make that much money on the easement, that this is not, they're trying to collect, from OSU, from a very short amount that we received from their lease. So the one thing I did add to my staff report, which I cannot find it because it's not 93. Oh, because we changed. Second here. Okay.
While you're looking for that, I'm curious as to how they got this far along in the building process and just now, did they just now come to the realization they needed an easement?
Yeah, Yeah, they need a water easement. I guess they thought everything was good with the city until the city told them, well, we need an easement for that. So we're really giving the easement to the city, not to OSU, but it is for utilities to benefit that building. You may notice that on the language I said, I recommend a motion authorizing the general manager to provide the water easement to the city of Newport substantially in the form is provided. The reason I said that is because OSU is still going back and forth a little bit with the city as far as some of the language. If anything, the language, if it changes, it will be very small, and it will be an armed benefit for more indemnification. So what I would ask is that the commission approves this with a possibility of some additional indemnification language. But again, this is, I just received a notification of that, like when I was putting this together, and I didn't want to leave the easement out because it may be another month until we get that. But if there's any change to what I provided here, will be that's something that benefits the board. And again, because I added that language that you approved, subject to small changes, and any of those changes I will run it by the attorney if it's, any implication to the board.
So, what page is that on? Yeah, okay, I'm on the right page.
So is there any financial liability to the port if the line breaks?
That's exactly what I asked the attorney. And he said, because we don't really have any buildings there ourselves, the liability, if anything, would be for OSU. And I sent that same exact language, or the same comment to OSU, and I told them, well, do you have concerns about your building? Because if you do, you may want to have the city add that language. And that's the part where we're kind of stuck a little bit right now. It's to make sure that if their liability and that OSU, if they're protected. And if their comment to us is, it's okay, we're okay with it, he said it's okay.
So we are just recommending, or do we have a motion to approve
I
this? It
would
sounds like there's
ask-
still a couple little questions.
Yeah, I would ask you to approve the execution of that easement again, subject to possible small changes.
So a motion is required.
Yeah. I would ask for a motion.
Yes, Jeff.
I'm ready for a motion unless somebody wants to have discussion.
I just had one more quick question. So you just mentioned unless they're okay with it, I mean, we're going to get that in writing, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, because again, the liability will be for them, not for us.
So we have a
And
piece
they're a
of
third
paper.
party. Yes, believe me, I'm making sure I ask for that.
Okay, so Jeff, you have a motion?
Yes, I move that the commission authorize the general manager to provide the water easement to the city of Newport substantially in the form as provided. That's it.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, so we're on to staff reports. And the accounting supervisor, we have an addendum on those numbers. Yes.
Right. Yes, you added the discussion to fill a vacancy for Port Commission.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, under
Yeah,
new
that's
business.
what that- yeah. Okay, sorry about that. We do have a
Thank you.
change in the agenda that was asked for, and that is new business, a discussion of the process to fill the vacant position with Stewart leaving the commission, and we got a handout on that. Everybody has that. I have it somewhere. So what kind of discussion would we like to?
Well, I mean, I just suggest that, again, the the document that Paula passed out to us, or port staff passed out to us, was a copy of Resolution 2014-08 that outlined the process by which we appoint new commissioners. And I just thought this would be an opportunity for port staff to make us aware of that process or any other nuances or timelines, and give the commission any opportunities to discuss that. No decision at this point necessarily, but just more of, here's a process, especially for people who aren't familiar with it.
Right, I'll be honest, I'm new to this process because we lost Jim.
Bye, Jim.
He didn't want to hear it.
Obviously, I've only been with the port for 2 months now, so I was not aware of that particular process. I did exchange some emails with our attorney about that too, and he made a point to make sure that the commissioners knew the process, and I exchanged with him a copy of that, although I had already gotten a copy from Karen. So you want to make sure we follow the process, as stated on that resolution. I don't know that I have much more to add than what is written in there, because I'm just not familiar. But as he said, there was, I think, a little issue on getting that vacancy filled. I don't know if it was in 2013 or the latest one. There wasn't, not everybody was agreeable. Yeah.
But I don't know.
That was cleared up with this resolution.
Right, because this is tried and true.
And that seems
Well,
to
no.
be the case
Yeah.
because he said it was in 2012, and I think that was
It was over.
2013, and that was 2014. So in my view, that's...
It was over Ken Brown's appointment. The process that was used when I was appointed also. So there were some people that had issue with that.
Okay.
Issue. That was cleared up with this.
Good. So that should be a good resolution,
I
I'm
think
assuming.
it's a current resolution and took care of past problems, so I'm good with it. I think it's important for people who are maybe going to apply to, this will all be on the website as of this evening or tomorrow. Tonight, I want you to go back over there. But,
Yeah, we'll make sure we'll post it.
yeah, because people want to know how to apply if they're interested, and I hope we have interested citizens to fill this vacancy, so getting the word out is important, certainly. Is that anything more, Walter?
Yeah, I just wanted to be, for the record, that we did just accept the results from the last election, and we did have this position was run opposed, and then we did have someone interested in it already, and I think we should extend an offer to make sure that that person puts his name in, and we give that great consideration. The last 2 vacancies we filled were from one person moving and the other one resigning, and then the other one was with the passing of one of the commissioners. But and that one was pretty close to an election. We did end up putting someone who had recently run in that office. So personally, I think that we should give great weight to the candidate that came in second to Stewart to fill in this position, seeing as it was just 6 weeks ago.
Okay, well, that person will be able to make up their own minds also if they even want to do it again.
Yeah.
So, point well taken.
Just a point in terms of scheduling, though. I mean, this outlines that due date for letters of interest will be the day 1 week in advance of the next regular board meeting. We know all this will be on the website, but I just thought it's worth public knowing and the commission being aware of that time. Go ahead. Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Mr. Ex-President.
Hard habit.
Yeah.
Just so on the process, so Stewart's last day is going to be Friday. So can we declare an opening before?
Oh, I guess not, really.
Can we declare a seat vacant before that date? And that's
Well, I guess we need a month, to get that. I don't see why not, because it's not like we're going to fill the vacancy prior to
The
leaving.
resignation letter is dated today.
Yeah, so I see no reason why we shouldn't start taking names.
Okay.
So-
I just
Yeah.
because the date we got this is different than the date that he's leaving. That's all.
No, right,
It's a courtesy from-
but he already, it's not different
And he'll be
than
lurking.
trying to hire
Yeah.
a staff.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
you
It
know,
did say he
right,
would be
somebody-
lurking. Well, I think timeliness is, it's true. People that are like, oh gosh, I need to get my name in, I need to think of a letter to write it. It's important everyone has as much time as they can to think about that position. So it will go on the website
And also,
tonight, right? Tomorrow.
so,
If you're not going to look tonight, I'll tell you it's going on.
and another thing to add, if anyone is interested and want to learn a little bit more about the port, by any means, feel free to contact us and ask questions. We'll be happy to assist you in whatever we can with information about the port. You want to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. So please.
Could that be a little preface on just sending the resolution out or to reiterate what you just said on the website?
Yeah, sure.
I would.
Great. Yes.
I would just go back to what we did when we announced the same process we used for announcing it to the paper when Patricia stepped
Yeah.
down, and just use that as the template.
Yeah, we should have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because consistency is important. Okay. Now we're off to next agenda item is staff reports, county supervisor Mark.
So in the commission packet are two sets of financial statements. One that was approved in the old business items removed from the consent calendar. Those are our usual monthly financial statements. And then the commission requested a second set of profit and loss statements that compare the fiscal year ending 2018 with the prior, 19 with the prior fiscal year ending 2018. Want to reiterate that these are preliminary figures, and those are year-end statements. They're unaudited. We're still closing the books for the year. I wanted to make some projections, as I did last year, based on the numbers that we have. I'm going to start with
We're on the addendum.
the budget to actual
Addendum.
profit and loss reports that were
Comparison.
approved for the year in the meeting. And that starts on page 17 of the main commission packet. I just want to highlight that operating revenues are projected to exceed the year's budget by $400,000 or 11%. A month or two ago, we were talking about the fact that annually revenue tends to come in over budget, and I did a 4-5 year comparison, and the average is 11.7%, so we're right on target with that average for the last 4 or 5 years.
I'm sorry, Mark, what's the page number again?
It was, this is page 17. If I'm going too fast, feel free to stop me, slow me down.
No, no problem.
That's a profit and loss budget versus actual report for the general fund. You'll see about a third way down the page, total income. The third number over, about $400,000 over budget. Fourth number over, 11% over budget. I have a correction on the next item. Operating expenses will likely come in not nearly $220,000. I'm not sure what number I was looking at when I typed it out. It's close to $300,000 under budget, with the highest portion of this difference due to some additional debt service appropriations from fiscal year 18-19 that were not realized in that fiscal year. Thus, halfway down the page, you'll see debt service for the year, we're only at 84%. That's because there were some items that were budgeted but not used, not utilized. Overall, the general fund is projected to see a budget basis net income for the year of nearly $475,000, which is a $106,000 increase over the prior year. There's also an increase in cash and cash equivalents of nearly $500,000, which is good news financially. I'm going to skip to page 24. This is the profit and loss budget to actual for the NOAA fund. A couple highlights there. This fund is projected to see a budget basis net loss of nearly $100,000, and this is due solely to the maintenance dredging costs for the year. I'll highlight something else a little later with the second set of financial statements. I'm going to jump to page 26. Highlight something with the Facilities Maintenance Reserve Fund. You'll see at the top there under income, we had budgeted transfers in from general fund. The budget's $264,792. We only needed to transfer $136,820 from the general fund to cover the expenses in this fund. So that's a savings of about $128,000 in the general fund that we did not have to transfer. And move to page 28. Same type of statement for the construction fund. This fund should see a budget basis net loss for the year of nearly $13,000. This was due to a $10,000 transfer in from the general fund that we didn't make and we didn't need. The reason we didn't need that is for the 2019-20 budget, our opening net working capital, what we were going to open the year with, was $25,000, and we exceeded that mark without that transfer. So we didn't need that transfer, so it saved $10,000 also in the general fund. Last, page 30, bond and debt fund. So you're going to see a net loss down at the bottom there for the year of near $343,000. That is due to property tax that was levied for bonded indebtedness for the year. We levied a much lower amount than normal because we had a reserve of near $400,000 that was building up. And that was from the 2016 refi of the 2007 and 2008 bonds. That saved us near $1 million in interest. That fund was building up a reserve, and we shouldn't have a reserve in that fund. It's a restricted fund. The only revenue source is property taxes. So we levied less, used the reserves to pay our debt service for the year. We're on target with that. It's just going to show a net loss for the year because of it. That makes sense.
Are all these numbers these were part of the audited numbers that Sydney did?
So the numbers I'm referencing now are from just the June 30, 2019 financial statements.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
they're unaudited
Okay.
at this point.
Okay.
So the second set of financial reports that was requested by the commission, those are in the addendum package. So we're going to start on page 8. These are profit and loss statements where we're not comparing the results of fiscal year ending June 30, 2019 to budget. We're comparing it to the prior fiscal year, June 30, 2018. And couple highlights there. You can see about a third way down the page, we have our total income numbers. And
This is page 9 of 15.
exactly, actually page 8 of 15.
Okay.
You'll see a third of the way down, you'll see a
Yep.
total income figure. So we earned $437,551 in additional revenue over the prior year. Again, there's that 11%. Biggest increases were in dock services and equipment rentals, RV park, and moorage revenues. If you go to page 9, the next page, under interest income, just highlighting the fact that a lot of these for interest income, you're going to see a large increase, and that's due to those interest rates that change.
You know, Mark, I just had one question
Yeah.
back on 8 of 15. Shipping terminal revenues on the July 18th to June 19th was
Right.
1,572, and then fiscal year 17-18 was 15,000, and I just wondered what that 90% change was all about. Just simple revenues?
So it was, part of it was a reclassification in the fiscal year July 17 to 18. We had some revenue items just for the electricity that's used out at the terminal. All the electricity was coded to this international terminal revenues. This year, it's up under the hoist off and services revenue. The residual is ILWU labor discharged to the port. We had a higher dollar amount last fiscal year than we did the year that just ended. So it's a variable between where we were coding our electricity revenue. We moved that this year, and then last year we saw more ILWU labor charges than we did this year.
I see. Okay.
Then, want to jump to page 9. The bottom line net income for the general operating fund, I'm projecting that we're going to see near $144,000 increase in our net income over the prior fiscal year. Starting on page 10, we compiled an additional report just for revenue. And what the purpose of the report was to find out of these revenue increases, this $437,551, what portion of that would be attributed to rate increases that were approved last year, and what portion would be attributed to the performance of operations, results of operations. The two right-hand columns that are in bold basically calculate that for us. I'll take an example. If you go halfway down the page under equipment rental, small forklift, the third column over, you're going to see that we earned $34,129 additional dollars in revenue this year, or fiscal year ending June 30, 2019 for the prior year. We increased that rate by 6.3%, and we came up with a number of $6,327. That's what we projected that rate increase would produce based on the prior year's numbers. The remaining $27,802 was revenue based on Aaron's operations department and leadership. That was above and beyond just the rate changes. So this full report, 2 pages worth, outlines that, and the bottom line on page 11, the projected change in revenue based on rates is $208,000. The revenue then that's due to results of operations is $229,036. Those two numbers combined give us our increase in revenue of $437,551. So kudos to the operations department for the result of the additional revenue. Moving to page 12, the NOAA fund, just highlight a couple things there. If you look down at the very bottom under net income, you can see that in the prior year we had a positive net income of $212,000. This year we're going to see a net loss of $100,000. Those two combined are about $313,000, which is very close to the dredging costs. So it's that dredging expenses that cause that swing. That's not a cost that's incurred every year, so that fund tends to be moving back and forth. Those are the highlights I had highlighted on those funds. Any questions so far?
Questions or comments? I like the breakout of the rates as opposed to services, basically.
So next, we received 6 proposals from audit firms in response to our RFP for audit services for the next 3 years. The proposals have been reviewed and scored on 3 categories: experience and qualifications, approach and understanding, and cost proposal, with a possible score of 100 points. The highest scoring firm with 96 points, and the recommendation to the Board of Commissioners is Kern & Thompson. The next, or the first runner-up, scored 87 points.
Is that in the addendum? Or is this just...
It is. It's part of the staff report, and it's the last page of the staff report, it's page 7.
Right, I see it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there's still some steps that will need to be taken to firm up those audit services, but that's the firm that was delivered by.
Where are they located?
They're in Portland.
Is there travel time expenses in that if they have to come down
There
here?
were, yeah.
But that was all figured in and what we figured.
It was, yeah. They were among the lowest. We had 2 low
96
bids,
is
2
good.
mid bids, and 2 very high bids. They were among
So
the
what other
lowest.
steps need to be taken before that becomes our new auditor or not?
They typically would send an engagement letter, and I can sign that on behalf of the board. If the board approves us hiring them to move forward with this audit.
Any other questions, comments?
We probably need to,
When do we need to approve it by, I was going to ask? Do you need to approve tonight?
we would ask for a motion to approve the Kern & Thompson to be hired as the board auditor.
Any motion?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I guess I just want to ask you, Paula, is there any qualms? Does it look cut and dry to you that this is good? Are there any questions in your mind? You think this would be better? Do you think we're ready to go ahead and select them?
I try not to participate on that selection because I had worked with some of the auditors, but I gave my 2 cents. And my experience actually at Kern Thompson, I had worked with them in the past couple of years, and they're real good to work with. And they're the type of auditors that if you have questions throughout the years, throughout the year, you can actually call them and ask. They will not charge you extra for. And that is a good thing for even the commissioners. If you have some questions, you can call them. They don't have staff coming and going all the time like some of the auditors do. Because often there are some firms that they hire people and new people and young people usually, and they stay for 1 year or two and then they leave. And then you're constantly training people, and they ask so many questions that is even not necessary. And these folks, they are very straightforward. They come in and they know exactly what they want. They ask, they talk to the right people, and it's very clean, easy, a very straight line. And then again, the fact that you were able to get them on the phone anytime you need. And then their rates, actually the better rates of all the other others. I have experience with them, and to me, I'll be happy to select them personally.
Well, that's a recommendation. Any other discussion, Walter? Can we entertain a motion to basically approve moving forward with the hire, with the process?
Yeah, they do to
Authorize the gentleman to enter into an engagement.
I move that we authorize the general manager to enter into negotiations with Kern Thompson LLC to do the ports auditing work next year.
Second.
Any more discussion? Questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
My last item on the accounting staff report is there is an upcoming debt service payment. It's our largest bond payment for the year, $1.5 million. I wanted to make the commission aware that that is due by July 31st, 2019, not 18 as it says in my report. And that is a principal-only bond payment on the NOAA Lease Revenue Fund bond. And that is the end of my report.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Questions, Mark? Jeff?
I just want to say thank you to Mark and staff. It's helpful to kind of look at the fiscal year, even though it isn't official yet, and compare it to budget and compare it to the previous fiscal year. Just kind of get a sense of where things are going instead of having to wait for the audit for several months. So I appreciate that and all the work and some of the highlights. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, we always thank you. So on to Director of Operations report.
Sure, thank you. Before I go into the report, one thing came up yesterday and today. It's not in here because I wrote this last week. The stormwater outfall in South Beach. There's the city's water line supplies North Restrooms, which is on the traffic loop over by the gas tank in South Beach. That water line burst yesterday and washed a bunch of more material out of those potholes over there, which are a result of stormwater outfall that's fallen in over there. So the city came in, fixed the water line, refilled the hole. We've got our steel plates back into place, but that's still going on. Last week, the city's getting some scoping done on their sewers right now. So we took advantage of that company being in town, asking for a quote to scope this stormwater outfall for us. And that'd be the first step in us trying to figure out what a repair plan would be for that whole thing. And for them to scope that, it's going to be under the micro-purchase threshold. So we're going to go ahead and get that done. We're already getting it scheduled right now. So hopefully the next commission meeting I'll have for you some information on what the actual state of that outfall is, so we know for sure where the biggest problems are and what the repair methods might be. In summary, it's summertime. The fireworks display went off at the terminal fairly smoothly. We performed our annual security exercise out there. The Port Dock 5 peer funding effort is going well. Got a letter from the EDA of continued interest, which means our project is competing well. If I can jump through these final hoops, which is several pages of questions that they've asked us, we're likely to get funding for that project. So I'm trying to get it done as quickly as we can, although there's a few things that are redundant. There are some information. There's some information I need to provide them that was done during the nationwide the Army Corps joint permit process. So I need to provide them with that information. But they also have another public comment period that's going to last about 30 days on the project. So we just sent the notice into the newspaper, and we've got to put that out there. That way, if anybody's got any comments, they can provide them to the EDA regarding the funding of the project. One of them is it's all regarding environmental impacts is what it is. One of them is because it's in the 100-year floodplain, and that requires a 30-day notice. So what I wrote here, that I have received word on what they're looking for, and like I said, most of it is fairly straightforward. I got a few questions I need to work out with them. I've been in touch with them this week, and I anticipate we should be able to give them the information that they need. I included some photos in here on, these are pilings that support the platform as you walk down to Fort Knox 3. We can't see these areas except for during the really low tides in the month of July. So during those negative tides, we went down and got some photos. We're going to need to add these two pilings we're going to need to get them repaired this winter. These are good candidates for some of those repair methods that we previously talked about because they support a platform. So in order so that we don't have to rip that whole platform out just to drive new pilings in, we're going to see about getting these cased and filled with either epoxy or concrete. So we're working with a couple of companies that do that work right now, and I think it's going to be fairly inexpensive. The steepest hill to climb on is going to be the permitting, and we're already moving on it. So that's going to be something that we hadn't expected to do this year. But as you can see, between 2007, I took these pictures in 17 on the left, or this on the top one here, and then just this month on the right, and you can see there's new holes that have formed there, and we definitely need to get this done. On that lower left picture, it's really hard to see in the black and white, but if you look at the base of that piling near the water line, you'll see a little area of light coming through. That's a hole, because the piling actually has a hole on either side of it, so you can see all the way through it. And I don't believe that hole was there last time, 2 years ago. The other thing about that is I believe we've got some electrolysis going on down there, so I need to get in touch with a couple of people to come and look at that for us and see if we can determine what's causing that, if it's already been rectified or if it's ongoing. The South Beach boat ramp tow repair, if you recall, several months back, that came to our attention by way of the Oregon State Marine Board. It's going to be a 2-hour project, but I have to go through the whole pre-construction notification process on it, and I'm working on. I have the permit request done now. I really don't want to have to outsource the permitting for such a tiny job. So I've got the permit done. I just need to finish talking to the people who actually make the determinations on it, so that we make sure that it goes smoothly. Charter boat policy in South Beach. We've got signs up. We've got the license in place now, and we're issuing those. We called TCB out this weekend for some extra hours to do parking enforcement, because it's been a challenge over in South Beach. A lot of people cars parking in truck and trailer spots that are taking up some of those spots and then pushing the people who have trucks and trailers further out into the street. So then of course they're getting tickets from the city there. So we're trying to enforce parking a little bit more carefully, and get word out to people that are going to be getting tickets, and they wrote a bunch of tickets this weekend. Everything else is in there, as you can see. The hoist is starting to slow down. The hoist dock's starting to slow down a little bit as the South Beach Marina and RV Park is picking up, and you can see that in our occupancy report after that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions in that report so far, if there are any.
Aaron, the comments about community ice says, I can read what it says there. It says that they'll be charged for the consumption of water according to meter readings. Do we have any kind of processing fee or anything? We're going to get the bill, and then we're going to have to turn around and invoice them. Then we're going to have to get a check from them. Then we're going to have to deposit a check. So what's our overhead that we're charging on top of that
We charge them a $300 admin fee for it, so,
for each?
for the year.
I thought that was actually increased by the license.
No, the license was, I had originally said at $300 a month, they came back and said no, so it was $300 a year is what, that's what it was written for.
Okay. But there is we made sure there is some administration fee because we realized that there is a little bit of back and forth. I thought we had changed.
I had a question on the piling replacement for the concrete fix-it, that those pilings are just fit for that type of work. Is that still in-water work that needs to be permitted and done in
Yeah,
water?
it is, yeah, it
Is that something that with any luck we could piggyback with the pier?
That's what I hope to be able to do, but it's liable to be done by a different contractor. I don't know yet. The process is a little bit different, and it depends on who gets the contract for the actual Port Dock 5 pier, if we get the funding. So it depends on a few things, but I hope to be able to do that.
Any other questions? All right.
All right. So the next item was in the 2013 when the Port Facilities Code was updated. There was a section added in there that has to do with processing of seafood product on port property, and it's generally leans toward addressing the presence of fish cutters that operate on the tables over in South Beach. So things happen at the port, and I don't think anything was ever really officially instituted. We sometimes get complaints about a number of different things. One of them is just sometimes people will complain about the way that we're allowing people to operate on the tables or not. And so I think it'd be a good time for us to take a look at it and possibly, so the port code, I've cited the section on 2.24 and what it generally says there. What we would need to do, as I interpret it, is we'd have to draw up some more specific requirements and get that passed by resolution, and then we would have to institute some kind of licensing thing, just like we just did with the charter boats. I'd like to be able to take maybe the month or so and work on this. I've been in touch with generally two thirds of the regular fish cutters down in South Beach. Bella and John, and talk with them a little bit so we can learn about, what kind of things might impact them, what ideas are good, what aren't good as far as they're concerned, and kind of put some of that stuff together and then come back at next month's meeting with a recommendation on what a resolution might look like. So, in doing so, I've got a couple. I wanted to check and see what the Port Commission's input would be before I get to working on this. A number of assumptions that I'm kind of moving forward with. My first assumption would be that we're looking to implement this process so we've got a standard way to permit the fish cutters to operate rather than prevent people from being able to use the facility. We're just looking to be able to set some parameters up where people would operate. We want to, they generally speaking, allocate themselves fairly evenly across the tables. So there's been, I get suggestions from some people that say we should locate them centrally in one place at one table. I've got a number of reasons that I think it may be better to limit the number per table or something like that. I think generally speaking, I think it would be best to allow them to continue to operate similarly to the way that they do, because I think the majority of people see them as an asset over there. There's not really enough fish cutting activity, I think, that's going to amount to a real revenue stream for the port, so I would focus on covering admin costs on this type of permit, and it wouldn't be like a revenue generator for us. I just don't think it's realistic. And I think that the last assumption I think would be a good one to make is we're probably going to have to address tuna filleting differently than the rest of it, because tuna filleting comes in such larger volume. And they generally bring in a couple extra people to help out when that happens. So if you just individually permit a fish cutter those folks may not see they may not see the benefit to go and get a permit just for a one-time use. And I do think it helps things move smoothly down there when you get somebody that comes in with a large cache of tuna. So those are the thoughts that I have. Of course, I'm always open to ideas or input from anybody, but that's the general direction that I was looking to go with it.
So does the Port Commission have something to say?
Yeah, so when we first did this, we did the marina, we had reached out to Bella and some of the other fish cleaners down there about putting in another table. I mean, there's been quite a few iterations of this, and I think before we go making a policy on that, I think we need to get Aaron on board with Bella and some of the people that have been down there for a while and seen where we've kind of dropped the ball on that. When we instituted the policy about the dock boxes, we took a lot of the cleaning off of the docks. We were supposed to have put in another table up there years ago. I know Chris put in for a grant 2 years ago for an Arnie to put another table in there, and I think he either didn't follow through with it or didn't have the time. So I think that there's a lot of other things that we need to look at than just putting these permits out there. Because we did have some discussions with them in the past that we were going to try and alleviate that or create more room.
Right.
And then a lot of this is, we always have problems when it's so busy. When the parking lot's half full, it's not as big of an issue. But I think that we need to make sure that we're following through what we talked to these people about in the past, and they had actually come forth and said, we'll pay for our own table. I mean, I don't think we ever got back to them. They're going to comment on this too, but I think that we need to get the whole story before we go through making a policy.
Right, I'll be curious to hear about that, whether it's better to have another table.
Yeah.
Jeff?
No, this is something I'm just not as familiar with, but I would be interested in hearing more.
Right.
And I like
What's
the
this
sort of
right
measured
here?
approach of fact-finding in the addition of what Walter said.
Right. It says right here, I encourage any in the public with views. So, Bella, you would like to speak on this?
I have talked to Walt a few years ago, and I've talked to Aaron here recently about it. And it's kind of nice that you guys are just kind of throwing it out here to get a feel of things, to see what's going on. And like Aaron said, we're more of an asset to the South Beach public than we are a nuisance. My only thing is the couple, 3 people that are complaining probably are the same people that complain every year. So if they're going to make that complaint, I'd really like to see it done in writing, them to put their name out there. I put mine out there saying, hey, I'm here to do whatever the court recommends. I'm here to help everybody. I'm here to make everybody happy. I know John came on this year, started playing fish over here. He's been a great asset to taking a lot of the flay burden off that main table over here where we flay a lot. And it's not just tuna days, but yes, tuna days can be crazy. We haven't seen any in a few years, but we've had a couple of halibut days that get crazy, and there's tons of people there, and we always get those 1 or 2 people that complain. We can't ever make everybody happy. It's just like at your guys' meeting. Not everybody's happy. But I am up and willing to do whatever it takes to make everybody happy as far as it concerns this room right here and my poor people that I have to work with for a few more years. Now, I've got a friend of mine that wants to put a cover over my fillet table for me, and that'll be a whole nother discussion, but we're looking at a $25,000, $30,000 donation he's going to make to us of covering that fillet table out there. But that's something I've also talked with Aaron about, and he's willing to cover that table this year at the end of our season, and then cover this table next year. That's something we'll come to you guys individually and talk to you guys probably just get together with Aaron and stuff. But like I said, we can't make everybody happy. It doesn't matter what we do. People are going to complain, and we try to do the best we can. I told Aaron I like the idea that, on Sundays, yeah, Brenda and I probably both don't need to be there at the same time. I've talked to Brenda about it. and said, how about if I take the morning shift, you take the later shift? So we always started working on one complaint. And John probably never gets any complaints because he's over there all by himself, and he works at the public really well. But you know, we're there to get those fish done and get those fishermen through as fast as we can. And I know we're a great asset to the community and to the port. So well, if you guys come up with something that we need to do different, as long as it's not an outrageous price. I mean, I pay a little bit for a permit, but you charge me too much.
It's not a money maker.
Yeah, it's not a money thing for you guys. I know it's not, but yeah. Other than that, I have to say thanks, Walt, for always working with us, and thanks, Aaron, for coming on board and trying to solve a problem with it this year.
Mike, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I do. I'm Mike Sorensen. I run the church in this area out of Newport. My wife and I own it. I'm Bella's husband. There's some situations that I see is even on halibut days, like come the 2nd and 3rd is going to be some of our busiest halibut days. The weather looks better, and there's fish showed up again, and it's going to be packed down there. And to have your fish filleters down there, they get people in and out of there. And I would encourage any of the commissioners or anybody to go down there at noon and stand around for a couple hours and see what the heck's going on down there. Because people sign up and wait in line. So if you are going to do this permit, I would suggest that it also includes their helpers. Because not all the time do they have a helper down there. They have it occasionally for busy days. And sometimes I have to help my wife, unfortunately, fillet fish too. The other concern that I have on this is I run a charter boat out of here, out of this office right here in Newport Marina Charters. Every charter office on this bay has filleters. I started charter fishing many years ago, that I'm not going to say, out of South Beach Charters, when it was over where John fillets, over at the old ramp, before the port even took over here. And I've been here for many years, and the charter, or the filleter for a charter, is as important as the boat itself. Because I'm bringing people from all over the state, and sometimes all over the world, out fishing, and they don't know how to process their fish. They have no idea. And none of the other, they charge their fee for the customers, just like any other filleter on any other charter office. So that's detrimental to the charter fleet in our charter boat business here. And Chris already pays some of that, has in his lease. So I'd like you to consider that too, that it also comes back to the port as that. And yeah, there are complaints. I've sat over there and I've heard people complain that your filleters will take up a lot of room. But I've also been sitting over there when my wife's all cleaned up and somebody's really disappointed that they went out salmon fishing with a friend and they don't know what to do with this fish. And they got this fish and now there's no filleter. So go in your dumpster sometimes and look, because you'll see tuna and salmon and bottom fish just thrown in the dumpster because people don't know how to use it. So I thank you guys, and with that cover, the gentleman that was in here earlier, he has a major steel company in Idaho that he manufactures the steel that makes this building over here. And we also have somebody that stays in the RV park here that is a major carpenter in the Portland area, and they are willing to donate their time and material to do a full cover over this one first, like Bella said. Not even attached to any of your buildings. They're going to make their own support, and they'll draw up a drawing, and we'll present that later to you.
And they don't want their names on it. They want the complaints coming back.
That's kind of called community, I think.
And the other thing that I would like to add also is another aspect that these filleters do, and I watched John, because I have my RV over here. how much they clean up the tables and clean up after everybody else that does not clean up after the table, and makes it easier on the port personnel that they don't have to come over there and hose down after somebody leaves all their crap guts all over the place and somebody's going to fall and break their neck.
I just wondered if there was any kind of portable, because it is busy time, not busy time, if there was something portable that could be like put on a couple posts, taken down. I don't know. You need a solid surface, I realize, but
It's a great suggestion.
so I mean, I'm personally very grateful to hear from you guys to lay it out the way it is, and go
There are
from there.
people that do bring over portable plastic tables like this that you can buy at Cabela's that are fillet tables that on busy days they know how busy it is and they'll set them up on the concrete over there to fillet their fish because they know how busy it is. And oftentimes if Bella's not using her table, she has special boards that she puts up there that she has purchased to keeps in her back there. And she lets people step up and use them anytime.
Well, we certainly appreciate you guys sticking through the meeting to help us with that, and we'll help you, you help us, that's how it works. Is there any more discussion, or Aaron, where do we go from here?
I'll take all this and work on it this month and, incorporate all these suggestions and maybe, I'll work on it some more as well. So.
And thank you guys, seriously, you guys do an awesome job.
Don't hear that often, thank you.
You're welcome,
We're
Sarah.
not here that often.
Aaron, just real quick, was there any discussion about any kind of liability to the port on this kind of thing?
It's something else I got to look into and talk to the lawyer and our insurance folks and see what they, what kind of caveats might they want to be, and I'm sure it can get covered in caveats in a license, and that's what we have to work on.
Just so it gets addressed in some form or
So
another.
there's everybody knows who's doing what.
The good thing about a license is it does cover that. There is some language, versus if they're there on their own, we shouldn't. It's not. They're not doing work for the port. They're doing work now. Not that they will be doing work for the port, but at least they're doing it under a license. And
Yeah, I think
the
that would
liability
protect you then.
part is covered. So.
Well, thank you again, and we'll move on to general manager report.
Okay. Well, before I get into my report, I just want to, again, just like Mark said, I want to give Aaron some kudos first for such a good job and bringing some additional revenues through his efficiency and well-thinking on the operations side of the work. I mean, 229,000 versus 208 from raising the fees. It's a pretty good thing, and also for such a good job he has done so far on this EDA grant that we're working, and we are where we are because of his good work. So, and I also want to give some kudos to Mark for stepping in during a couple of years without a director of finance and doing such an amazing job. We put on a lot on his shoulders, and he just done an excellent job. And with that said, you guys are probably wondering who's this fine gentleman sitting over there on the table, and I want to introduce you to him. This is Mark Brown. We have just made an offer for Mark for the Director of Finance position. And Mark comes from DEQ, and I'm just going to give you a couple minutes to talk about yourself there, Mark.
I think she said I came from DEQ. I have an MBA from Portland State. Been in state and local government for the past about 12 years, primarily in the finance and operations types roles. I've also been in private industry, so I've a wide variety of experience.
Great.
So I believe Mark is a good fit for what we're looking for with, juggling finance, HR, and some of all that work we need in our shop. So I want to welcome Mark, although his starting date is not until the 5th of August. He graciously offered to come here today to assist the meeting. So, okay, so you got my my report there. I guess I just want to focus a little bit on the work actions, I suppose. I guess I'll already introduce you to Mark here, and the other thing that I want to highlight is this opportunity to utilize some of these brownfield coalition assessment grants that was given by the EPA to the economic. Actually, this was for the whole year Bay Group. So basically, we have an opportunity to do any environmental assessment that we have in our properties. So we're looking at opportunities to utilize some of that grant that is already in place. And we're looking at the old, I guess they call fruit processing on South Beach. And we are also looking at to save some monies on the assessments we have to do for the seawall here at Road. And then we're looking at other opportunities, for phase 1 or for some other specific environment assessment that we may have. So that's good that we have that opportunity. Also, I have talked to our finance advisor from the ASDAO to trying to figure out how to obtain some funds to have some sort of matching for grants, because our problem is like for right now, for instance, Murad had an opportunity for a pretty large grant, although it's around the corner in September, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get to that point, but the minimum ask is $10 million. We could utilize some of that for Dock 5 and Dock 7. However, when you look at the match, you're talking about a couple $1 million just for the match is 20%. So it becomes real difficult for us because we don't have money to get free money. So he was kind of looking high and lows and trying to figure out ways to get us some funds. One thing that we're looking into now is considering possibly refinancing the NOAA bonds. So we actually already talked to 3 different bankers. We did some tour of NOAA with one of them. And we actually just talked to the council, the bond council yesterday. So we're looking into what is possible, what is not. And I think there's a real good opportunity and possibility that we could save a couple $1 million on that grant. On that bond, a couple $100,000 a year. So we're looking at it still. Nothing is set in stone at this point, but that is looking real good. So we'll continue revisiting that, and that I think it will be a little bit too late for the Murad grant, but I'm also talking to. And looking into Business Oregon as we move forward now that we have our strategic plan, because the thing about the strategic plan is it opens the door again with the state and trying to get some grants as well as some loans. So we'll keep looking at that. Beyond that, I'm just continuing meeting with folks around the community, trying to get to know folks more. I did a visit to OSU and had some good discussions about some good partnerships, and then even the possibility of them helping us with grants, because that's what they do all the time, you know, it's write grants. So they're more than willing to work with us and helping us write some grants. So I'm looking into that as well. I continue working and talking to folks that could be a possibility to use the terminal. I am lined up to meet some folks in August. I'm still calling people and trying to understand how we can work with both the shippers and the fishermen and trying to coordinate that. Not sure what that's going to go yet, but we are making that approach and talking to folks. As you know, I did attend the Pacific Northwest Waterways Association with a couple of our commissioners, so Walter and Sarah. I think, actually, I also attended the Association Pacific Port, and to say that it's always good to attend some of those conferences. You're talking to people that do kind of the same things you do. Sometimes they have issues, sometimes you have issues, that it just, we can utilize those as examples and ask people questions and not try to learn something from scratch, but to figure out ways to talk to folks that have already dealt with some of the similar kind of problems. And we always meet some good people, both staff and commissioners from other boards. And I think both were good conferences. The agenda, sometimes it's very defined to, well, actually what they do is they try to put that agenda in such a way that cover a lot of different type of ports and members. So sometimes it seems like it's made for your port, sometimes it doesn't. But again, beyond the agenda, that in this particular case, APP was actually, I learned a lot of stuff. The PNWA, it was more of being able to engage like the folks from Business Oregon there. Again, we were able to have some conversations about our strategic plan, and there are folks from the Corps and from, I mean, you name it. There are folks from everywhere. Oh, actually, there was somebody from MARAD on the Association of Pacific Ports as well. And he brought up this particular grant that I was talking about and gave us a little bit more insight on that as well. So anyway, it was good to attend those two conferences. It does take a little bit of our time, our everyday work, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Either items that are on my report or anything else.
Yeah, you've got it all nicely organized here. Any questions
Yeah.
for?
Is that port infrastructure grant, is that a one-year program or is it a revolving program, the MARAD grants? Is that a program or was it just a one-time?
What I heard from this particular gentleman that was over there at the APP conference is that he said there's a possibility that may come back. It's
Okay.
not, at this point in time,
one-time.
it's not an ongoing grant. So I feel good from what he said that there's a good chance that it may come back. So with that said, because this is due in September and I don't
Right.
think we're going to be ready for it, I would recommend that we're really looking into creating some budget to put some money aside for that match. And looking into the next opportunity, which could be in a year, could be in two, but I think something similar will come back. Because this one, the MARAD one is a maritime transportation,
Right.
you know, so it's for just ports.
Right.
Simply made for ports. So we got to take advantage of that. Again, looking at our strategic plan, we are the port in Oregon that had the least amount of grants, and we need to change that. So,
Connect Oregon, did you hear anything about the money that did not get spent this year? Is that going to be opened up for applications or?
yeah, sorry, and I did not put that in here because I just heard that I had already prepared my Yes, so the Willamette transloading facility that they were trying to put out in the valley, it's not going to happen.
Right.
So that money is going to come back. Plus, I heard that they had already set aside something like $13 million plus that money. So we're going to have somewhere close to $60 million that should be available for Connect Oregon. And I talked to Dave Harlan a little bit about that. So certainly we'll be looking into it as well. Again, just like most grants, you gotta have match. The highest your match, the more opportunity you have to get the grant. Because basically the way that they rate those, the application is by, how ready you are, how, what economic benefits bring,
Right.
and how much you can put down. If you do 20%, it helps, but 50% helps more. So that's one of those things.
Could you use EDA funds to match that MARAD grant? Is that possible?
No, I asked that
Okay.
question because I heard that came up before. Where can you use federal grants, federal match to match a federal grant? And what I heard is in some very special occasions, then something may work, but for the most part, they expect a local match.
Okay.
So, no.
And Dave Harlan's replacement, do you know?
No, I asked him, as a matter of fact, I just sent him another note today and asked, so who should we talk to once he's gone? I haven't, maybe he responded, but I haven't seen it since.
Okay. And anything, you met with Paul Langner, did he have anything to say?
Yeah, so I did meet with Paul Langner from Taven Brothers just to understand the background of the whole project, what went wrong, and I think the only thing that he brought up that he said he could consider talking to us again is the fact that the blackout date is a problem for him. He said that he would need at least, if we can make room for 1 week out of the month, those months, he will sit on the table again to work on negotiating a lease. But without at least 1 week availability during those times, it's impossible for them to make it work.
Okay.
So, I'll let you go on that.
And I'm sorry, I won't hog all this up. Anybody else? I had one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the NOAA lease, is that pretty much, that's their response?
Okay, so I did send you a copy. I probably should have sent everyone a copy of my letter to them. I did send one to Stuart. So I did what you asked me to do, which is send a letter to them stating what the lease says. And as I mentioned before, even though the lease doesn't specify 2 visiting vessels, the resolution did that. And they see the resolution as part of the negotiation that they could bring 2 vessels. I did have a conversation with Kate Gittner, our attorney, and talk about how does that work as far as the resolution. Because usually, the commissioners can cancel that if they want, but is it wise? Well, he said that when you someone used your resolution as part of their negotiation, let's say they're already, they move forward with the lease with that concept that they will be able to bring in other vessels that work with them. And now all of a sudden we say, no, you can't, even though it's not part of the lease. It was something that they rely on it. With that said, it could create problems for us. So it's not advisable to remove that or,
Well, it's not so much removing it. Again, it's a clarification of things. Their lease is a legally binding document that they
Right.
sign.
But
And
again,
according to letter you sent over, the part you referenced didn't have anything about visiting ships in it, I don't believe, did it? I mean, this is all predicated on the resolution that the Port Commission passed.
Right.
The one-page, one-sentence reference,
Right.
and they're predicating an entire policy based on that, as opposed to, I mean, I'm a little confused about the wording they put here.
They still feel like the language that they use wasn't necessarily saying that. You know, again, it's a matter of interpretation. You know, you got, I see it the way you see it. When I look at that lease, to me it says that they are the sole manager of the pier. In other words, they control who comes and goes, but it also says that they should not bring any non-NOAA vessels not to compete with other, it says, yeah, no, to compete with other vessels. So to me, I look at that, and I have looked at lots and lots of leases. I see that as basically saying, well, you manage, but you cannot bring other vessels. You manage your vessels that come in and out. But again, the interpretation is different. And then the fact, again, that we are not, and they said that that was part of their negotiation to bring in other vessels. And the fact that the resolution itself says that, they can certainly rely on it. It may be a little bit complicated for us to say that they can't, according to our attorney.
Well, I mean, I guess I had one more comment. I mean, if we're going to sort of capitulate on this, my suggestion would be that we should also then further clarify this and say, since we have no control over any vessel they determine to tie up there, that any and all liability for anything associated with those visiting ships will be assumed by NOAA and will essentially release the Port of Newport from any possible future. Thanks. I'm sorry you have to do that, actually.
Believe me, my first meeting.
You know, I mean, like, if they want to do this and assume this, it's not, there's a liability issue, I think, to some extent. I mean, it's just like subletting an apartment or something. The owner doesn't have any control over who you're doing that to in some way. So, and I think potentially, I don't know if we even want to, I don't know if you can quantify wear and tear, but basically, if a larger ship comes in here and breaks something, then the port shouldn't be. I mean, I think that's where I started to have more of a problem with this.
Yeah.
So if NOAA wants to take this hard line on this, as opposed to telling these vessels to utilize the international terminal, which is just as accommodating for the most part as this, then we need to have, I would think, in writing from somebody in authority in Silver Springs that can say, okay, we understand and accept any and all liability associated with any visiting ship that comes along here that isn't a publicly owned vessel. So, it's just my thought.
Yeah, typically, and I meant to actually check that their lease is a little bit cumbersome because it's kind of little big pieces all over, but I meant to actually look, but typically whenever, you know, someone is utilizing, like in this case, they're in charge of the pier there and the facilities, that they are responsible for everybody that comes in and out independently, if it's their vessel or not. But I'll double check on that.
And that includes managing the repair. I mean, you know, I think that the classic scenario here is that if a ship comes in and damages a piling, they'll say, okay, here's our insurance money, Port of Newport, go fix this. And again, that's where I don't think we should be liable for that. The NOAA should have a process and something to make that whole as well. If they're assuming this liability, in my opinion, of bringing other ships in.
I will do a little bit more checking on that, and I will get back to you on that.
You know,
I just say that I think that they're expanding on what they consider other vessels. And you know, I wasn't there for the whole thing, but I've been there for a lot, and I don't think that to the spirit of the lease, this doesn't. They're not following it, and I think they're taking advantage of us. And I'd also point out to them when they when we signed the contract with them, they had 7 ships. They decommissioned 4 of them. So I don't know what they're doing with that. And they're going to have one there basically decommissioned at the dock.
Right.
And it's just something that we have a long time being involved with this too. I think it just needs to get pointed out to them, and it might not go anywhere, but I think that they're taking advantage. And I would also, maybe start offering up some of our other vessels that use the commercial marina that, hey, they can go stay at NOAA for free if they charter with them, and see what happens. I mean, they basically said any vessel that charters with them, and we do have quite a bit of our fishermen would probably love to stay at that dock for free.
Yeah, I think we need to get into some revision with this and figure it out one way or another, what is not, because obviously there's a discrepancy here in different interpretation. And as we get, the port gets new managers, new commissioners, special commissioners that come and go, more often. This is always going to come up, and I think we need to figure out something and have it in writing, and whichever way we agree to, either, okay, we may agree to disagree, but we accept it, or we move forward with something else. But something just needs to be decided, so this doesn't keep going.
And I talked with Don Mann. I talked to a couple of other commissioners that were around,
yeah,
and he said that it was his understanding that they were talking about Coast Guard and Army Corps, and that was it.
That's what Don told me as well.
Publicly owned vessels. That wasn't. So that was just, and the other commissioners were around at that time too, and that was their understanding, and that was the intent of that resolution. So I would offer that if they're going to violate the intent of the resolution, then we could discuss that too with them.
Okay. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to take a look at the letter,
I appreciate it, Paul.
and give you some guidance on how, because I'm the new person here. I don't want to just come in and be the hardcore person. I want you have some history, so you can tell me how you feel and how you want me to proceed. So, anything else?
Nope.
Well, thank you, Paula. Commissioner reports or comments? Jeff? Walter?
The only went to PNWA, and it was good to meet people and reconnect. The only thing that really got my antenna up was some of the new classifications for mitigation and doing studies on maintenance imports now, and they're going to be applying some of the ESA language to replacing infrastructure. And to me, that was you could read it as replacing it might not even be possible anymore, or repairs, and doing an EA on the impact on the ESA listed species 40 years out now. So when we might have to do an an EA on our replacement of Port Dock 5 and 7 about how much longer it's going to be interfering with ESA species, and which will greatly increase our costs. So I can say with great confidence that everybody's jaw in that room dropped when they said that, but that's going to be very cumbersome and very onerous on us going forward with any maintenance. And I know Rosie down at Alsea she's being one of the first ones in Oregon that's facing that, and she's having a really hard time.
Anything more, Walter?
Nope, that's it.
Just real quick, I know our meeting's going a little bit long. I'll just make just a general comment, a parting comment, if nothing else. I think a couple of things that I think that the Port Commission really needs to think about that we all pretty much know, but I'll just remind everybody of the importance of increasing our revenue generation and return on investment out at the international terminal. We've got a lot of things going on, and I don't think we should, for a minute, take our eye off the ball, because I think we've got to pay a lot of other bills, and that's one of our biggest untapped resources for generating some additional revenue, in my opinion. So I'm really hoping that the commission continues to focus on that. And I would also make a subtle comment about some of the pay equity stuff that I think that the commission also really needs to think about going forward within the port itself. I think, we've heard for a while about port salaries and things like that being kind of low. I think as people retire and as people move forward, I think the commission's really going to need to think about a very much of a holistic approach to how to handle and address some of the positions around the port. And I think if we want to continue to attract and most importantly retain good folks. So parting comments over those two things that I hope that the port can continue to look into. And again, I just want to thank everybody again for everything they've given me over my tenure here on the Port Commission, staff, commission, and the public as well. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
All right.
And if I can write on that a little bit on the pay equality, just I was going to mention that, but I didn't. Since you mentioned, so we should have a survey done hopefully by the end of next week. And I gotta say, we keep losing people. We actually already lost someone again this week, so we're right now, maybe we're gonna have 3 vacant positions, and then we're having a hard time hiring for the other positions, so now we have another vacant position. So, and it is very important to have an attractive salary that we can bring folks over here, and it's never been easier here to hire folks at the coast to start with, but when you already have not a good package to offer, it makes it more difficult. So I personally will try to continue working on that as the general manager, making sure that the people that we hire will pay properly, so we continue to having good people, because I don't want people to come and go. I want to have good folks that understand the port business and they stay. So just want to add that too.
Thank you. And I went to PNWA. It was my first conference with the port, and it was very, very interesting. Like you say, I met a lot of other commissioners and just saw people in action, and it's so good because they're really just people, and so it comes down to a level where you're just talking to folks, so it was really interesting and good. So no more commission comments or report. We have a calendar of future considerations. I can't believe there's September things on here, but Shop at the Dock with Oregon Sea Grant is happening through August. Cast for Kids is our first opportunity to work with that group in Yaquina Bay, which is a great thing. The Coastal Caucus Economic Summit, August 21 to 22nd. Regular commission meeting is next August 27th. Labor Day, the port office is closed, so that brings us to public comment. If anyone wants to make a public comment, state your name and just gentleman back here.
Well, I'm John, I'm the other player, and I'd just like to reiterate what Bill and Mike said, that I'm happy that you guys are working with us so we can get some things done at the fillet station. We're the last spot that most people, when they're in Newport, we're the last place people are. After this, they head for home. 4th of July weekend, they dealt with people from Alaska, San Diego, Utah, Florida. They came here, and they had a great experience. And they just had a lot of fun, and it's good to be part of that.
Yeah.
It makes me feel good to show Newport off, and that's kind of what we're doing here. This is all part of Newport. There is one issue that was brought up, parking. When we have a lot of people here, parking gets to be a real premium. And something I might suggest is we have a big neighbor just south of us here at the aquarium. They have several big parking lots, especially in the springtime. They're not real busy. Might be a place where we can acquaint people with the aquarium and have them be able to park their vehicles there, their trailers. Maybe they can buy, with the aquarium, make a special where they can send a family when the other guys are out fishing to the aquarium, buy a couple of tickets or something like that. Work with them maybe on to alleviate the parking problem, because I know that's an issue sometimes when there gets to be a lot of people here. So. But thank you very much. I'm glad that this is my first time at the meetings here, and I'm glad everybody's here. Nice to meet everybody. And I talked to Aaron, but I'm sure I'll see the rest of you around here and that. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. It's always very helpful for us.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Oh,
Sitting too long. I'm not speaking for the city steward, but I'm speaking personally. I've sat here in all these meetings and watched you guys perform and do your thing. You've had a lot on your plate this last year. And I just want to say thank you for your leadership. I think you set a tone for the commission that was calming and sensitive. You were, you brought your wisdom, you brought your knowledge, and you brought your inclusiveness to the commission. I think that all helped. And also Terry, I think, was a big part of that. But I know you put countless hours in. You went to the state, you went to talk to people, and you helped with the many problems that were had. So on behalf of myself, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Dietmar.
yes.
Gordy. Again, Stuart, thank you. I think the port's in a better place because of your service here. I think the community's in a better place because of your service here. We're going to miss you.
Thank you.
Hopefully you stay in touch, and you were always a voice of reason and common sense, and we always appreciate that. Look forward to working with you like we do the rest. But we think you've done a great job for the port. I think you've done a great job for the community, and on behalf of the LWU and myself personally, I'd like to say thanks and good luck. I know you're going to excel wherever you go, so keep going, and the road goes both ways, man.
I sure hope so. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Any more comments? If not, I will say this meeting is adjourned as of 8:35.